So I want to talk a little bit about the alt-right age of rage. This is a documentary that is on Netflix, and I watched it about a week ago. It just kind of popped up in my feed, and I was interested. And this is before the mainstream media and everybody else started talking about this documentary, which is gaining a lot of traction. And I, as somebody who is a libertarian conservative, who back in 2016 when the alt-right first started coming up, got a lot of shit for calling them out as a bunch of racists and telling people on our side, people who aren't leftists, hey, don't call yourself alt-right because they're a bunch of racists. They're just rebranded white supremacists. Please don't fall in with them calling yourself alt-right. And I got a lot of flack for it. I got a lot of crap on social media because people were insistent, absolutely insistent, that the alt-right is just Pepe-loving, Reddit users who are just sick and tired of the left and SJWs and the swamp and all this kind of stuff. They're not racists. And I insisted that they were. And of course now, 2 years later, most of those people have disavowed and disassociated themselves with the alt-right because they have now come to understand exactly what the alt-right is. And then they, in fact, are just racists. And so that's kind of gone over. So I was interested. I wanted to see what this documentary was. I wanted to see what it was going to focus on and how it was going to focus on the alt-right. Was it going to be a propaganda piece for the left, or was it going to be honest and talk about how the alt-right isn't right at all? And in fact, if you look at people like Jared Taylor and Richard Spencer, both who are heavily featured and interviewed in this particular documentary, most of their politics are actually very progressive. They're very, very progressive. They are more socialist than they are right-wing at all. The alt-right isn't right-wing. They are not conservative. They're not libertarian in any way, shape, or form. They aren't for smaller government or anything like that. They have very, very progressive politics. They just also happen to be racist, so the progressives on the left don't want to take ownership of them. They force that ownership on anybody like myself, who's conservative libertarian, or people who are straight up Trump voters, or conservatives or Republicans or whatever. They put that onus on us to take ownership of this group of racists when in fact they're not a part of us in any way, shape, or form. And I thought this was an opportunity for somebody to show that via a documentary. And what we got was the alt-right, Richard Spencer and his ilk, as the great, evil, racist bad guys of the movie. And the heroes are Antifa? Antifa. The heroes of this particular documentary are Antifa. One gentleman in particular, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. If you saw him and you pay attention to a lot of the Antifa rallies and things like that go on across the country, you'd recognize him. Very, very large, older gentleman. And I have seen him before, never knew he was a big part of it. I just would see him because he stands out at rallies because he's physically large, big dude. He seems to be the hero of this particular documentary, and he is straight up Antifa. He's admitted Antifa. He's been on the bandwagon, fighting the good fight since, I believe, like the 1990s, for a very, very long time. And he is very set in his ways. And what I thought was one of the many things that I thought was laughable about this particular documentary is he and every other Antifa member that they talk to in this video don't seem to understand the words that are coming out of their very own mouths. You see, they keep talking about and then on video demonstrating that they are willing to use force and violence to stop speech, ideas, ideologies, and actual movement. Now, I don't know if anybody understands the definition of fascism, but I basically just gave it to you. It's the willingness to stop ideas and speech and movement and all these things with force and violence. Like, that literally is fascism. And these people who say they're anti-fascist throughout this entire documentary, no matter how many times they talk about it, no matter how many times they say and show they are willing to use violence to stop these evil people, don't seem to understand they are being fascists to stop perceived fascists. It just seems to go over their head repeatedly, over and over and over again throughout this documentary, and nobody behind the camera seems to point out to them, hey, you do realize that's like the meaning of fascism? Like, you're literally being fascists to stop fascism? It never gets pointed out to them. It's absolutely ridiculous, but they just spout it off over and over and over and over again throughout this hour and 30-minute, hour and 45-minute documentary, and openly talk about how they're willing to use force and violence to stop speech. And it's insane. And these are the quote-unquote heroes of this documentary. And then there is another gentleman, again, I don't remember his name, but I recognize him because he's one of the higher-ups at the Southern Poverty Law Center, and he's laughable as well. He does actually come out and say we shouldn't use violence to try and stop these people. We should use our words. But then he goes into a whole rant about comparing them to Hitler and Nazis, and while that's a fair comparison, the thing is he tends to harp on this idea that it's really, really horrible when Hitler basically killed a bunch of babies, aborted a bunch of babies because of viability and who those babies were going to be, which, if you know anything about the Southern Poverty Law Center, you would, as I did when he said that, almost do a spit take, because when it comes to organizations, basically the Southern Poverty Law Center and Planned Parenthood are besties, okay? They love and support each other greatly. And we're talking about Planned Parenthood, who over the last few decades have killed, literally killed, murdered tens of thousands of babies for viability reasons, or maybe just because the mother just fucking felt like it that day. I don't know. So it is laughable to hear this dude from the Southern Poverty Law Center say anything about Hitler and aborting babies based on viability. It's laughable and it's insane. It's actually very, very sad. I laughed and then realized we were talking about dead babies, and then immediately sobered up and had to just realize how sad it was that this gentleman with a camera in his face could not see the hypocrisy of what he was saying. All in all, what did I think about this documentary? Well, it was an incredible missed opportunity to actually help bring the country together here just a little bit, to show that yes, while the left absolutely hates the alt-right, so does most people on the right. And that, look, these people aren't right-wing. Their politics are not right-wing at all. They may be a bunch of racists, which traditionally, for whatever reason in this country, is associated with the right, even though it's the left and the Democrats that started the KKK and all this other crap. For some reason, the right gets stuck with the name racist, right? Even though they are racist, they're not right-wing. It was an opportunity to do that. It was an opportunity to show, look, the left, the center, libertarians, conservatives, progressives, Democrats, Republicans, even most Trump supporters, by a large margin, you know, probably like 99.999% of Trump voters, do not want anything to do with the alt-right. We disavow them absolutely, completely, hands down, and call them out for the ridiculous racists they are. But they didn't do any of that. They simply used this as a way to repeatedly bash Trump, people on the right, conservatives, all in the name of calling out the alt-right. It was sad. It was pathetic. What else could you expect? It was basically a left-wing propaganda piece. So there you go. There's my my overview of alt-right Age of Rage. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you guys later.